You are here for a specific reason. You might not know it yet, but these 3 laws of alchemy that you're about to learn only reveal themselves when the soul is ready. And if they've reached you now, it's because the calling has already begun. These laws are not magic formulas. They are ancestral codes that the initiates use to alter their own destiny. They were taught in Egyptian temples, in Pythagorean circles, and hidden from common humanity for centuries. Today, science calls it the electromagnetic field, but the ancients called it aura, vital fluid, personal magnetism. You're emitting this field right now, literally, and it changes according to what you feel, think, and believe. Every cell in your body generates electricity, and as has already been demonstrated in laboratories, every electric current creates a magnetic field around it. This field can be detected over a meter away from your body using instruments like the quantum device used to measure subtle fields. And the most impressive part, the human heart emits a field up to 5,000 times stronger than the brain. In other words, what you feel has more energetic impact than what you think. That's why your outer reality is silently shaped by what happens inside you. And this brings us to the core of Hermetic teaching. The tradition of Hermeticism, attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, the Egyptian Greek master, encoded these truths into 7 laws, but there are 3 that are the foundation of all inner transmutation. These are the 3 laws of alchemy you'll learn today. You won't find these keys in quick internet formulas. These laws involve the science of the mind, the vibration of the heart, and the correspondence between worlds. You're going to understand why everything you experience today is a reflection of your inner state. You'll learn how to align your field with a new reality in a practical way. And most importantly, you'll discover that the power to change your life was never outside of you. It's always been in your field. Do not look outside yourself. Turn inward. Truth dwells in the inner man. Plotinus. Since birth, you've been shaped by a system that didn't want you to remember who you are. This system taught you to always look outside yourself, to seek approval, love, safety, recognition. From a young age, you were exposed to a life model where everything revolves around results, obligations, goals, and comparison. You grew up hearing that you need to race against time, that you must achieve what others value, even if that never made sense to you. Spirituality was treated as something distant, as if it were a privilege for a few, something exotic, unreachable, or even dangerous. In some settings, it was reduced to rules, fear, guilt. In others, treated as fantasy, and over time, the natural connection you had with something greater started to fade. But what was erased wasn't the truth. It was your access to it. Because from the beginning, the great masters already knew that everything you're looking for is within. Hermes Trismegistus, the master from ancient Egypt, left teachings that remain alive to this day. He said that the outer world is a reflection of the mind and that the true temple is within. Buddha spent his life teaching that human suffering is born from illusion, attachment, and ignorance of our true nature, that the mind, when not observed, becomes the source of every cycle of pain. Socrates, in his provocative simplicity, challenged people's certainties so they could discover that wisdom wasn't about collecting answers, but asking the right questions. And the deepest question has always been, who am I? Mary the Jewess, one of the first female figures in alchemy, taught that transformation begins in the invisible, that before changing the world out there, you need to boil and distill your inner world. She spoke of processes, of fire, of purification, but all of it was metaphor for the soul. These masters weren't interested in creating doctrines. They weren't selling salvation. They were lighting torches for those ready to see in the dark. And that light, that knowledge that can completely transform your reality, wasn't lost. It was silenced. It was buried under layers and layers of distractions, obligations, and noise. You were trained to think that life is just about paying bills, keeping up appearances, and waiting for the weekend. To believe you're here just to survive, when in truth you're here to awaken. And while that light was being dimmed, another kind of programming was being installed. From a very young age, you were taught to doubt yourself, to mistrust your intuition, your worth, your sensitivity. You heard that you were too sensitive, too dreamy, too intense. and you learned to stay quiet. In school, they didn't teach you to think for yourself. They taught you to obey, to memorize, to compete. You were conditioned to fear mistakes, to avoid the unknown, to fit in. It didn't matter who you were on the inside. What mattered was how well you could repeat what they said was right. In your family, maybe you received love, but you may also have received pressure, expectations, emotional inheritances that weren't yours, beliefs about money, about worthiness, about success, about what is or isn't possible for someone like you. In spirituality, maybe you sought refuge, but in many places, you found guilt, fear, rules, hierarchy. They told you that to connect with the divine, you first had to feel small, as if your humanity were a mistake, not a bridge. This set of voices created an invisible prison, a field of beliefs that follows you everywhere, even without you noticing. Beliefs that whisper that you're not capable, that you're not ready, that you'll be judged, that you can't trust yourself. And this field isn't just in your mind, it spreads through your body. It tightens your shoulders, clenches your chest, shortens your breath, reduces the flow of vital energy. And without realizing it, your light starts to dim. This energetic suppression isn't something you can see, but you feel it. You start living with the brakes on, afraid to make mistakes, to bother others, to be rejected. And behind all of this is the feeling that something is missing, that you need to prove yourself, improve yourself, fix yourself before you're worthy of existing in peace. But even with all of this, something inside you refuses to stay silent. A flame that, even when smothered, doesn't go out. An ancient memory, almost forgotten, that you came here for more than this. We are living the beginning of a deep change, a silent but real transition. Consciousness is expanding, not because of the outside world, but because something inside is beginning to awaken. And this awakening doesn't depend on ideal conditions. It happens even in the midst of chaos, even in pain, even in the dark. Awakening begins with healing, not with perfection. And it's exactly in that darkness that the process begins. You don't need to be enlightened to awaken, nor have all the answers. What's truly asked of you is presence. It's to look honestly at the parts you tried to hide from yourself. It's to admit that it hurts, that you're tired, that despite all this searching, there are still open wounds. Spirituality doesn't begin in elevation. It begins on the ground, in the soil of your pain. It begins when you stop trying to seem strong all the time and accept that there's a wounded child inside, a part that just wants to be heard, welcomed, understood. The world taught that feeling is weakness, that vulnerability is a flaw. But the truth is that feeling with awareness is one of the most spiritual acts there is, because only those who are alive feel. Only those who are present feel. Only those who have the courage to fully inhabit their own existence feel. The more you allow yourself to be real, the more you start returning to your center, a center that is not static, not perfect, but it is yours. And it's precisely this authenticity that creates the most powerful magnetic field that exists. Masks push people away. Truth brings them closer. When you stop hiding, something shifts in your frequency. When you allow yourself to be who you are, even without understanding everything, even with fear, even with flaws, you begin to emit a different signal. A signal that attracts people, situations, and experiences that are more aligned with your essence. This is the field of a soul in process. A soul that doesn't seek to be perfect, but whole. And that wholeness begins with accepting the now. What you are, what you feel, what you're ready to heal. Because self-love doesn't come from achievement. It comes from acceptance. And when you begin to love yourself even while imperfect, even while confused, even while uncertain, you activate a power that no technique can replicate. This is the magnetic field of truth. The first Hermetic law, mentalism. Reality begins in your mind. And as you allow yourself to feel, to recognize, and to integrate, something deeper begins to emerge. A quiet but steady force that comes from awareness. because everything you experience, everything you call reality, is filtered through one single place, your mind. This is the first great key of Hermeticism, the foundation of all esoteric wisdom, the idea that the entire universe is mental, that the all is mind, and that your mind is a living extension of this creative force. It doesn't matter what's happening around you. What shapes your experience isn't the event itself, but the way you interpret what's happening. If you believe you're lost, everything around you begins to confirm that loss. If you believe you're in transition, the same chaos starts to feel like a rite of passage. That's why two people can go through the same situation and react in completely different ways. One shuts down, sinks, freezes. The other sees a door, a lesson, a calling. The mind is the lens that colors everything, and that lens can be adjusted. Viktor Frankl understood this in the most extreme conditions a human being can face. Even in concentration camps, surrounded by death, suffering, and loss, he discovered that there was something no one could take from him: the freedom to choose what to think, the freedom to decide what that experience meant. That is power, not the power to control the world, but the power to command the meaning you give to things. And that meaning creates your vibration, and your vibration creates the field, and the field becomes reality. You're already creating all the time, already emitting, attracting, shaping. But most people do it on autopilot. They react, repeat, survive. Just replay the same thoughts they inherited without ever questioning where they came from. That's why awakening begins with the mind. Not a mind overloaded with information, but a mind that has learned to observe itself. That is no longer a hostage to old patterns and has begun to cultivate awareness. Don't wait for everything to change so you can then change inside. That order is reversed. It's within that reality starts to reorganize. The second Hermetic law, correspondence. What is within is like what is without. Everything that happens outside is just the surface, a mirror, a reflection of the landscape that is forming within you, even when you can't yet see it clearly. This is the second great key of Hermetic wisdom, the principle of correspondence. What is above is like what is below. What is within is like what is without. This law is not a distant or abstract concept. It is present all the time in everything. The way you see the world depends on how you see yourself, and this goes far beyond positive thinking. It goes beyond conscious beliefs. It's about what silently vibrates in your inner field, and that, in an invisible way, begins to shape the structure of your reality. If you feel like everything is stuck, that things aren't flowing, there may be old emotions that still haven't been seen, wounds that are still asking for attention, parts of you that are waiting to be heard, acknowledged, integrated. And the external reality, with its silent language, simply shows you that, not as punishment, but as a mirror. Like a wise, patient teacher who keeps repeating the same lesson until you are ready to learn. Let me share with you a short story that illustrates exactly what we're learning. It is said that in a village hidden among mountains, there was a young man named Kale. He lived frustrated, saying everything around him was unfair. People were cold, the land didn't bear fruit, and the days seemed more and more grey. Kale believed he had been cursed. He blamed fate, luck, even the gods. One day, angry, he climbed to the top of the mountain and shouted to the sky, "Why is everything around me so barren? Why does no one understand me? Why does the world deny me what I need most?" The wind blew, and from it appeared an old woman with deep eyes and skin made of earth and time. She was the guardian of the mountain. She approached Kale with a mirror made of dark stone in her hands. "What do you see here?" she asked. Kale looked, but he didn't see his face. He saw the village. He saw the dry land. He saw the distant people. He saw everything he hated. "I see my life," he said. "All of this was forced on me." The old woman smiled gently and replied, "What you are seeing is not the world. It's the reflection of your soul." And then she disappeared. Kale descended the mountain in silence. And for the first time in a long time, instead of complaining about the cold, he lit a fire. Instead of demanding warmth from others, he offered tea. Instead of cursing the land, he planted seeds. Months later, the people seemed closer, the land more fertile, the days more colorful. Nothing outside had changed. Kyle was the one who had transformed, and the world simply responded. It's the same with you. The world does not punish you. It shows you. Lack reveals where you still feel unworthy. Rejection reveals where you have not yet accepted yourself. Repetition reveals where you still resist. But as you begin to look inward with more honesty, everything begins to reorganize. That's why true transformation begins the moment you stop fighting the present, when you understand that your current moment, no matter how uncomfortable, is the perfect raw material for your alchemy. This is the beginning of transmutation, the moment when you stop trying to change the reflection and choose to touch the root. Because everything you integrate, you release. Everything you embrace dissolves, and everything you heal begins to bloom around you. The great work does not begin outside. It begins when you realize that you are already the laboratory, the fire, the stone, and the gold at the same time, and life, like a loving mirror, begins to show you the new landscape that is being born within you. The third Hermetic law, vibration. Everything vibrates, and you are energy in motion. Your field is in motion. Everything in the universe is in constant vibration. Nothing is still. Nothing is truly solid. What we call matter is simply energy condensed at different rates of oscillation, and you are part of this flow. Your thoughts vibrate. Your emotions vibrate. Even the silence you feel has a vibration of its own. This is the third Hermetic law, the principle of vibration. What you feel alters the rhythm of your energy. Emotions like love, peace, compassion, and gratitude create gentle, expansive, welcoming waves. They raise the frequency of your field and align you with more subtle states of consciousness. On the other hand, when you hold on to fear, suppressed anger, or quiet frustration, the field contracts. The vibration becomes denser, and everything around you responds to that new pattern. This isn't a belief, it's physics. The heart, for example, is not just an organ that pumps blood, it is an electromagnetic generator. Studies already show that the electromagnetic field of the human heart is about 5,000 times stronger than that of the brain. And more than that, it influences the field of the people around you. That's why you feel comforted when you're near someone who radiates calm. That's why certain places, like nature, have the power to soothe your entire system. Because there is exchange, there is resonance. You're affected, and you also affect. In every word you speak, in every silence you offer, in every presence you hold, it's not what you show, it's what you vibrate. And when that vibration comes from a place of authenticity, it creates a field of healing, a field of attraction, a field of manifestation. Being at peace in your own skin is not just emotional comfort. It's a sign that your frequency is clean, stable, coherent, and that state is magnetic. Because everything in the universe responds to vibration. And when you begin to realize that everything vibrates, the way you see manifestation also changes. It's no longer about forcing positive thoughts or repeating phrases in front of the mirror hoping something magical will happen. That is control in disguise. It's fear trying to look like faith. True manifestation is born from alignment, from that inner space where you already feel connected to what you desire, even before seeing any evidence on the outside. It's when you understand that you don't need to convince the universe, you just need to return to yourself, to know who you are, to recognize your true desires, to listen to your pain without running from it, to feel your limits without guilt, to embrace your shadows without shame, and most importantly, to accept the present moment as it is. Because the rush to escape where you are is often what keeps you stuck there even more. When you align with what you desire, you don't force. You flow. You stop looking outside for something that has already begun to vibrate within. To manifest is not to create something out of nothing. It is to allow what is already in the field, though in a subtle frequency, to condense into physical reality through your internal coherence. Spiritual maturity lies in this. In stopping the use of spirituality as an escape or a technique of control, and beginning to live like someone who trusts the process, even when it still feels incomplete. It is at this point that you manifest without trying to manifest, because you've already become what you wish to live. Gratitude for the present, the secret of real alchemy. And as you begin to understand that manifestation is born from inner alignment, a new awareness starts to open up. The idea that you need to wait for everything to change in order to feel at peace begins to lose its grip, because you start to realize that peace is not the destination, it's the tool. Do you want a new reality? Start by looking deeply at the reality you already have. Your room, your pillow, the coffee you drink in the morning, the shower that soothes your tired body. All of this is already a form of abundance, but so often you go through it all on autopilot, without presence, without gratitude. And here lies the key. Gratitude is the first conscious act of alchemy. It turns the ordinary into sacred, the mundane into extraordinary, routine into ritual. Not because it changes the thing itself, but because it changes your inner state in relation to it. And that inner state is what starts to shift your field. Want a simple example? Take a notebook right now, any notebook. Write down 3 things you're grateful for today. It doesn't need to be anything big. It could be the sun that touched your skin, 5 minutes of silence you had, a message that made you smile, or even the fact that you're here, in this moment, engaging with this content. Write it truthfully, with presence. Then close your eyes for a few seconds. Breathe, feel. That is already a spiritual practice. Because in that moment, you are activating the vibrational field of gratitude. And gratitude, contrary to what many believe, is not only for giving thanks for what has happened. It prepares the ground for what is yet to come. It makes space. It tunes you into higher frequencies of perception. And when that happens, life responds differently. This is living alchemy. Transmutation that doesn't need a lab or complicated formulas. It only needs presence, awareness, and the willingness to see beauty where before there was only rush. Now, look at your reality with different eyes. What if, instead of an imperfect scene, you began to see an initiatory phase? What if your simple home is actually a temple? What if what you're living today is exactly what your soul needs to grow stronger? You don't need to run from your current reality to create a new one. You need to dive into it with a new perspective. And that perspective begins with gratitude. Because true alchemy transforms perception into power, and once that transformation begins, there's no turning back. You've already felt it. You've already sensed that something inside you is shifting. Maybe you don't know how to explain it, but you know you're not the same. Every word that touched you, every idea that stirred your mind, every emotion that surfaced as you listened, all of it is already part of the process. You are changing now. You don't need to wait for a sudden enlightenment. Enlightenment begins in the small things, in the now, in the decision to stop repeating old patterns, in the quiet choice to respond differently, to think with more awareness, to feel more deeply. With each new realization, your energy field adjusts. With each new understanding, an old structure dissolves. A mind that opens to a new idea never returns to its original size. As Einstein said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know it, you can't pretend you don't. And now that you've seen, you know. Now that you've felt, you've already begun to remember who you really are. And if you want to activate your divine power starting today, begin with a simple act. Choose every day a moment of silence, a moment to be with yourself. Deep breathing, eyes closed, and a sincere question. What within me is ready to be embraced? The answer doesn't matter. What matters is the presence. Because in that moment, you are sending a signal. You are telling the universe, I'm ready to remember. And that signal, even in silence, is heard. Before you go, a special video has been prepared exactly for this moment in your journey. It's the natural continuation of what you've just begun to awaken here. So don't leave now. Take a deep breath. Look carefully at what's appearing on your screen. Click on that video. I'll meet you there. Let's keep going together on this journey of remembrance, awareness, and inner alchemy. I'll see you on the other side.